topics: faith, family and freedom in Cuba, Belgium, Brazil, Congo, UK and all over the USA to crowds from 14 to 40,000. International leadership speaker, trainer and coach. Author of Learn to Raw Leadership, Attitude Hack, Live a More Excellent Life, 5 Battle Strategies of a Victorious Warrior. 2021 President's Lifetime Achievement Award recipient. Founding partner of the John Maxwell team. Toastmaster International Speech Competition semi-finalist. Founder of Tell It Like It Is TV, ThatGuyRocks.com and ThatGuySpeaks.com. Creator of Story Power TV, Transforming Grace TV, and Leading Leaders Podcast. Producer of 4 TV programs and podcasts for Liftable TV and World Trumpet Television, as well as multiple social media channels. Please help me welcome J Loren Norris.
I have to be honest and say I was a little bit taken aback by his response. I sat back in my chair for a moment and then I had what I thought was a pretty clever response, but it may not have been the most kind thing that I said. I was talking to him about this book, The 5 Battle Strategies of a Victorious Warrior, and the purpose of the book is really to help men. It's good for anybody, but men, because that was my story, overcome sexual addiction, sexual problems, overactive sexuality especially when you're not married. And so when I mentioned to him that, there was something like this around, his answer to me was, I don't know any men who have problems with sexual addiction or addiction to pornography. I've just never met anyone who has that problem. And I said to him, these are the not so kind words, but I think very true. I said for you to say to me that after 30 years in ministry, you've never met a man who had a problem with sexual addiction is like for me to say to you, I live in LA and I've never seen a car. I'm either blind or deceptive. I'm either unaware or I'm lying. It can only be one of the two. That's what I want to talk about today on Leading Leaders.
Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom.
I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast. If you are the kind of leader who allows things to go on, under the carpet, without a whole lot of attention, without your intervention, then chances are you're the kind of leader who is willfully blind. Now, it may be that you're deceived and what's going on under your nose, you genuinely don't know anything about. It may be that you're the deceptive one and you know what's going on. In fact, you might even condone it or find yourself to be complicit in it, meaning what's happening you're totally okay with. In fact, you might even think it's a good idea, but you don't want anybody to know that because it would look bad for your name. It would look bad for your reputation or your position or your status in life. And so you allow it to go on and you do nothing about it and you don't correct the problem. You don't correct the people who are causing the problem. You don't correct the symptoms of the problem, which means whoever the victims are, whoever's being shafted, taken advantage of, suffering injustice, well, they're kind of your victim is who, because as a leader, you have the ability, the power, the influence, the authority to do something about it, but apparently you don't have the will. See, we find ourselves in a problem right now all around the world where we have leaders who are aware of various things that are going on, and I could go through a whole litany of things from mortgage rates to the way people are treated in certain neighborhoods based on the color of skin or their sexual proclivities or the kind of school that they've attended through the course of their life. And their prejudice is against them. There are others who know about them. There are others who know about those prejudices, who, believe it or not, have the ability and the authority to say, stop acting that way. Stop treating people like that. Don't do that. There will be consequences for your behaving that way. And yet they don't. They have the authority, they have the power, they have the influence, but they won't use it for that purpose. Now, if you're the kind of leader who knows of an injustice and does nothing about it, let me be so bold as to say, if you know that something is being done wrong, unjustly, unfairly, illegally, whether criminally or just outright wrong against a basic moral code, then you as the leader who refused to stop such behavior are complicit. Look it up from a legal standpoint if you'd like to. The word actually means that you are involved in the crime or wrongdoing. That's what complicit means. And I believe, and so does the law of most lands, that if you know something is going wrong, someone is being mistreated, someone is being abused, and you do nothing about it, that you are equally as guilty as the person who is doing the wrongdoing. That's what they say in the court of law, that if you knew about the crime, that you might be complicit after the fact. You might be an accessory after the fact, meaning you knew about it after it happened, but you did nothing to report it. Or an accessory before the fact, you knew about it before it happened, and you did nothing to prevent it. I was just reading an article this morning about an individual who was involved in some heinous ideas. When I say heinous ideas, pled guilty to the plan to nail people's hands to the table, chain them to a tree, and assault them before ending their lives. And yet this individual was discovered to be a part of a small community organization leading a bingo game for children and adults. Now, the individual actually never went through with the crime, but they had planned the crime. They had all the tools to commit the crime. They had motive, and they had means, and they had every other thing. They were just caught before the crime. Which tells me that some leader, whether they were in a capacity of a leader or the title of a leader or not, someone who had influence in the community spoke up and went, hang on, wait. These people are planning to do this. If they had not spoken up and the crime had been committed, they would have been an accessory before the fact because they knew the details but didn't do anything about it. But no, this leader, alas, was actually a good leader. They recognized that something was about to go down, and they said, no, we're not going to do that. In fact, I'm going to make sure the authorities get involved, and the crime that you're about to commit is thwarted. I'm going to prevent it from happening. Shucks, foiled again, might say one of Scooby's victims as Scooby and Shaggy uncover the criminal in the midst of the act. But see, the leader who knows that that kind of plan is underway and who says nothing, well, they're, according to the law, in most cases, equally as guilty as the person who carries out the crime. The leader who watches embezzling go on in a business place and does nothing to stop it, equally guilty of embezzling. The same with racial injustice or sexual injustice. If there's a sex crime going on in your place of business and you're doing nothing to stop it, whether it's sexual harassment or molestation or abuse, if you know it's happening and you're doing nothing about it, you are complicit. This is not complicated stuff. It is common stuff. That's a sad thing, though. There are people from school teachers to business owners to community leaders who are aware of little things that they just kind of sweep under the carpet because, well, it would cause too much of a stir if everybody knew what was going on. Someone could lose their job over it, and, well, it's not really my place to cause them to lose their job or their career. It's not my place to judge them. Actually, it kind of is. It is your job as a leader to make moral judgments about what's right and what's wrong, what's in compliance with the law or the rules or the policies at hand, and what is not. What is not your job as a leader is to redefine what you consider criminality or right and wrong. An example might be the redefinition of acts of criminality. Well, he's not a bank robber. He's just someone who needed to take out a loan that was unapproved. No, it doesn't work like that. You don't get to just change it. I remember having I guess you'd have to call it an argument. And it's been 3 or 4 years ago. The young man was 17 or 18 at the time. But he said, I like to smoke weed. What's wrong with that? And I said, well, I don't know. It's against the law. You can go to jail for it, especially as a minor, especially trying to do it on a school campus. You can't just do that. He's like, well, I'm just going to resist the law until they change it. I'm like, no, you're just going to go to jail until they change it, because that's the way it works in a legal system. Your opinion of the law doesn't change the law. Whether you like it or you don't like it isn't relevant to its application. It's funny, though, that we have grown adults, we have people in politics, we have people in office all across this land who are willing to ignore the laws of the land as they're written, and not only ignore the ones that are written, but just make some up willy-nilly out of the blue and say, well, I'm going to live by this rule, and I'm going to force you to live by that rule, and even though there's really no reason that your rule and my rule should be different, that's what we're going to do. If you're a leader who is aware of that kind of injustice, that kind of malpractice of leadership, if you willfully are blind to injustices and criminality that are going on, and you're doing nothing to stop it, you are complicit in the criminality, the wrongdoing, and the injustice. You got to stop. Now, I know it's hard. It's hard sometimes to stand your ground. It's hard to take that place and say, I know I'm going to take some heat for this. I know I might even lose my job for this. I know I might be canceled for this. But I see something that's wrong, and I'm going to tell somebody, hey, that's wrong. They've got a bad plan. What they're up to is going to lead to destruction. The whole reason that Enron changed the accounting practices of the world is because there were so many people who knew that what was going on was wrong and said nothing. They knew that hundreds of thousands of people were being milked out of their retirement fund. They were being destroyed financially. Maybe not intentionally malicious. Maybe even the people who were doing it thought, one day we'll make them very wealthy. But the way they were going about it was criminal activity. Unfortunately, at the time there was no law to protect it. Those things have changed. Because what they did was so bad, it cost so many people their livelihoods, their retirements, people who had thought they were retired and comfy to sit back and do nothing till the end of their days, found themselves back in the workplace. What was going on was wrong. There were people who recognized that what was going on was wrong. Even before there was a law that said what was going on was wrong, morally they knew it was wrong. But there were leaders who knew morally what was going on was wrong, and they did nothing. I believe Dante says, the hottest fires in hell are reserved for those who in time of moral wrong do nothing, or something like that. If you're a leader and you know something going on around you is wrong, speak up, get involved, write a letter to the editor of the local newspaper, at the very minimum. Put a post on social media and say, hey, just want to see if there's anybody who also agrees with me that this is wrong and it shouldn't be happening. Call people out. Talk to them face to face. Take them to coffee and go, hey, here's what I'm thinking about what you're doing. And I'm aware of it. So that means there are probably other people who are aware of it. And you probably ought to stop that, or at least at minimum reconsider if what you're doing is right or wrong. Because if you as a leader have nothing to say when people are being hurt, treated unjustly, being robbed, having their rights or their money stolen from them, if you know what's happening and you're doing nothing, you're complicit. If you could stop it and you do nothing, you should pay the same price as the criminal when they're caught. And don't think that just because of your stature or your position or your ability to say, well, I didn't know, or I was just following orders. If you think those things will protect you, you should go back and watch the Nuremberg trials again, because I was just following orders was not a legal defense sufficient in the moral calamity created by those who were tried in the Nuremberg trials. No, if you know it's wrong and you follow orders to do what's wrong, you're just as guilty as the people who came up with the orders, the ones who fashioned this disaster. If you know it's wrong, your responsibility is to the rest of society to do what's morally right. Willful blindness should not be expected or accepted among leaders. Willful blindness is a betrayal of your leadership opportunity. Willful blindness is a betrayal of those who follow you and the power of your influence. If you know that it's wrong, stop doing it. If you know that what someone else is doing is wrong, let them know that you've noticed and they should stop. And if they don't, pass it on to those who have the right to do something about it. But don't remain willfully blind. Don't hide your eyes in the sand and say, cars in LA? I didn't know there were cars in LA. Your ignorance of the law is no excuse. The law will still find you, and you will pay a price. If you know it's wrong and you do nothing about it, you're complicit. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.